I don't know if I should even be telling this story, but I feel like I need to. Maybe sharing it will help me make sense of what happened. Honestly, it still feels like I'm in a daze, like the whole thing didn't really happen. But it did, and now I can't seem to shake it. It started 2 weeks ago. I was on the train heading home from work, like I do every day. I live in the city, and my office is about a 40-minute commute from where I live. The train isn't usually crowded, but it's also never empty, especially around 6 p.m. when everyone's heading home after their day. On this particular day, I had gotten the last seat in one of the cars. It was a little cramped, but I didn't mind. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my social media, just zoning out like everyone else on the train. The usual routine. I wasn't paying attention to much of anything. And then, I noticed him. He was sitting across from me, just a couple of seats away. I hadn't seen him get on the train, but I wasn't really looking around. I was too absorbed in my phone. He was wearing a dark hoodie and had his head down, like he was trying to keep to himself. At first, I didn't think anything of it. People come and go on the train all the time. But then I felt it. A shift in the air. A presence. I looked up and caught his eye. For just a second, he looked directly at me, and I could see that his eyes were wide open, unblinking. His gaze wasn't normal though. It wasn't the kind of look you'd give someone by accident. It was intense. It was like he was studying me. I quickly looked away, my heart starting to race. I told myself it was nothing, just someone lost in thought. It's not unusual for people to look around the train, especially after a long day. But when I glanced back up a moment later, he was still staring at me. At that point, I started to feel uneasy. My stomach was in knots. I tried to focus on my phone again, but it wasn't working. Every time I looked up, he was still looking at me. And I mean, he wasn't just glancing. His stare was fixed, unbroken, like he was waiting for something, or worse, like he knew me. It didn't make sense. I didn't recognize him. I wasn't someone who usually attracted attention, so why was he staring like that? I tried to ignore him, telling myself I was overreacting, but I could feel my pulse quickening. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I stood up to switch seats, trying to get as far away from him as I could. But the train was crowded, and there were no empty seats. So I stood there, gripping the pole, trying to look anywhere but at him. And then, I felt it again. His eyes. I couldn't help it. I turned around, and there he was, still staring, but this time he had shifted in his seat, leaning forward. He didn't even blink. I could feel his gaze burning into me, and I realized something that made my stomach twist. He was following me with his eyes. Every time I moved, he adjusted his body to keep me in his line of sight. That was it. I couldn't handle it anymore. The panic started to rise. My breath felt shallow, and I could feel my hands trembling. I rushed to the door as soon as the train pulled into the next stop. I didn't look back. I just needed to get out of there. I stood on the platform, waiting for the next train, trying to get my bearings. I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid, but it was probably nothing. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. When the next train arrived, I got on, but I didn't take a seat. I just stood by the doors, watching the crowd, waiting for my stop. I couldn't bring myself to sit down, not after what happened. I thought I was safe. But then, just before my stop, I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't dare turn around, but I could feel someone approaching. Slowly, deliberately. I tried to stay calm, to act like I didn't notice, but when the train slowed to a stop, I felt it. He was standing right behind me. I could hear his breathing. Slow, steady, too close. And then, just as the doors opened, I felt his hand brush against my back. It wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate touch. I don't know how I managed to get off the train so quickly, but I was out the door before he could follow me. My heart was pounding, and my legs were shaking. I looked around the platform, but he wasn't there. At least, not at that moment. I rushed up the stairs to the street, trying to put as much distance between myself and that train station as possible. I walked faster and faster, my eyes darting around, paranoid that he was behind me. When I got home, I locked the door and collapsed against it, breathing heavily. I didn't know what to think, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I didn't want to go out again. I didn't want to get on that train again. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing noises, footsteps in the hall, a tap on the window, but when I checked, there was nothing. I stayed awake, watching the clock tick by, until the sun came up. The next day, I went to work like usual, but I couldn't stop thinking about the man on the train. I couldn't get his eyes out of my mind. They were so cold. So calculating. The next week, I decided I was going to be cautious. I couldn't let this guy control me. So, I took the train again. I made sure to stand in a different car, as far away from the front as possible. I didn't want him to see me. But just as I was about to get off at my stop, I saw him. He was standing at the door, waiting to get off as well. And then, he looked at me. I froze. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, it felt like time stopped. I couldn't move. But then, something strange happened. He didn't get off. Instead, he stepped back, disappearing into the crowd. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. But it didn't matter. He was still out there, watching. I never saw him again after that, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. I avoided taking that train for a while, and whenever I had to, I made sure to take different routes, different times. I don't know if he was really following me or if I was just losing my mind from the stress, but I couldn't shake the feeling that one day, I would see him again. I haven't been able to fully relax since. It's like I'm always looking over my shoulder. And every time I get on the train, I wonder, is he watching me? Is he out there, waiting for me to come back? I just don't know. But I can't forget the feeling. And I don't think I ever will. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened last week. It feels like I've been living in a nightmare, and honestly, I'm just trying to shake it off. But it's hard when every time I close my eyes, I can still see his face. I never thought something like this would happen to me, but now I know, it could happen to anyone. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I've been going to the same gym for about a year now. It's one of those small, local gyms, not a big chain or anything. The kind of place where everyone knows each other, and you can get your workout in without dealing with a bunch of crowds or noise. I liked it because it felt personal, and the staff was friendly. I usually went after work, around 7 p.m, when things started to quiet down. So, it all started last Tuesday. I had just finished my workout, and I was cooling down by the mats in the corner of the gym. It was a little quieter than usual, just a few people lifting weights and doing stretches. I wasn't paying much attention to anything around me, just scrolling through my phone, when I felt it. A gaze. I don't know how to explain it, but I could feel someone looking at me. It was the kind of feeling where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, but when you look around, no one's really staring. You just know. I looked around the gym, trying to spot anyone who might be watching, but all I saw were the regular people, some on the treadmill, others by the weights. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then, my eyes landed on him. He was standing by the far corner of the gym, near the treadmills, not moving, just watching me. He wasn't doing anything else. He wasn't even stretching or checking his phone like most people do. He was just standing there. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was staring at something behind me or lost in thought. But there was something about the way he was standing, something too still, too deliberate, that made me uneasy. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was overreacting. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling. I finished my workout and went to grab my stuff from the locker room. When I stepped out into the hallway to leave, I saw him again. This time, he was standing near the entrance, looking down at his phone. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I walked past him, I noticed that he was watching me from the corner of his eye. I wasn't imagining it, he was staring directly at me. It wasn't like the casual glance someone might give when they're not paying attention. No, this was different. It was as if he was waiting for me to leave, like he was following me. I felt a little shiver run down my spine, but I didn't let it show. I quickly exited the gym and walked to my car, trying to ignore the fact that I could feel his eyes on me the whole way. When I got in my car, I locked the doors and sat there for a moment, trying to calm myself down. It's nothing, I told myself. You're just being paranoid. I drove home, trying to distract myself with music. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When I got home, I locked all the doors, closed the blinds, and tried to forget about the guy at the gym. But that night, it happened again. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I thought I heard something. A tap on the window. I told myself it was probably just the wind, but then it came again. Tap. 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 My heart started racing. I jumped out of bed and looked through the blinds, but I didn't see anything. For a second, I felt a little better, thinking it was nothing. But then I remembered, there was a park across the street from my apartment. The gym wasn't far from here. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to wonder. Was it him? Was it the guy from the gym? The next day, I tried to convince myself I was just overthinking everything. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The guy had been acting too strange. Too watchful. So, I decided to go back to the gym that evening. When I arrived, I tried to act normal. But as soon as I walked inside, I noticed him again. The same guy. He was standing by the front desk this time, talking to one of the staff members. I felt my stomach twist. It wasn't just the fact that he was here again, it was the way he looked at me. His gaze was intense, and for a second, I thought he was about to approach me. I tried to stay calm, so I grabbed my gym bag and headed to the locker room, telling myself to just get through my workout and leave quickly. But the entire time I was there, I felt his presence. It was like he was watching me, even when I couldn't see him. After about an hour, I decided to leave early. I was ready to go home and forget about the whole thing. But when I stepped outside, I saw him again. He was standing near the parking lot, right by my car, just staring at it. I couldn't believe it. He was waiting for me. I didn't know what to do. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't think clearly. I quickly got into my car and locked the doors, but I didn't leave right away. I sat there, watching him out of the corner of my eye. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring. I started my car and drove away, but I wasn't sure where to go. I couldn't go home like this. What if he followed me? I couldn't take that risk. So, I drove around the block a few times, trying to lose him, but when I circled back toward my apartment, I saw him again. This time, he was walking slowly down the street, in the same direction I had gone. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to call someone. I dialed the police. When they answered, I explained everything, how the guy had been watching me at the gym, following me home, how I had seen him outside my window the night before. The dispatcher told me they'd send someone over to investigate. I stayed on the line, talking to her until the officers arrived. The police were pretty quick to respond. They took my statement and said they'd check the security cameras at the gym. It wasn't long before they identified him. Apparently, he was a regular at the gym, but they didn't know much about him. They said he had been acting erratically lately and had been seen lingering around other women at the gym, though no one had reported anything before. They also found out that he had a history of minor arrests, and they suspected he'd been using drugs. The police told me they'd keep an eye on him and would talk to him, but for now, they assured me I was safe. They made sure I got home without incident and told me to report anything strange if I saw him again. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't called the police. What if I had just ignored the signs and gone about my life? I don't want to think about it. I haven't been back to that gym since, and I'm not sure when I will. Every time I see someone standing too still, staring at me, my heart races. I feel like I'm always looking over my shoulder now. But for now, I'm safe. I'm at home, locked inside, and I'm just trying to breathe again.